Much later, and on many levels, you will finally learn to take many forms as you choose consciously. In one manner of speaking, you do this now, you see, translating your psychological experience, your thoughts and emotions, quite literally, but unconsciously, into physical objects. You may find that when you imagine yourself as a child, after death, that you suddenly have the form of the child that you were. For a certain period of time, therefore, you can manipulate this form so that it takes any appearance that it had when it was connected with your physical form in the immediately previous physical life. You may die at 80, and after death think of the youth and vitality that you had at 20, and find that your form changes to correspond with this inner image. Most individuals after death choose a more mature image that usually corresponds to the peak physical abilities, regardless of the age when the physical peak was reached. Others choose instead to take the form they had at the particular point when the greatest mental or emotional heights were achieved, regardless of the beauty or age that characterized the form. You will feel comfortable with the form you choose, therefore, and you will usually use it when you want to communicate with others you have known. Though, for such communications with the living, you may instead adopt the form you had when you were known to the individual you want to contact. These after-death environments do not exist necessarily on other planets. They do not take up space, so the question, where does this all happen, is meaningless in basic terms. It is the result of your own misinterpretations of the nature of reality. There is no one place, therefore, no specific location. These environments exist unperceived by you amid the physical world that you know. Your perceptive mechanisms simply do not allow you to tune into their ranges. You react to a highly specific but limited field. As I mentioned earlier, other realities coexist with your own at death, for example. You simply divest yourself of physical paraphernalia, tune into different fields, and react to other sets of assumptions. From this other viewpoint, you can to some extent perceive physical reality. However, there are energy fields that do separate them. Your entire concept of space is so distorted that any true explanation is highly difficult. As your perceptive mechanisms insist that objects are solid, for example, so they insist that such a thing as space exists. Now, what your senses tell you about the nature of matter is entirely erroneous, and what they tell you about space is equally wrong. Wrong in terms of basic reality, but quite in keeping, of course, with three-dimensional concepts. In out-of-body experiences from the living state, many of the problems are encountered in terms of space that will be met after death. And in such episodes, therefore, the true nature of time and space becomes more apparent. After death, it does not take time to go through space, for example. Space does not exist in terms of distance. This is an illusion. There are barriers, but they are mental or psychic barriers. For example, there are intensities of experience that are interpreted in your reality as distance in miles. After death, you may find yourself in a training center. Now, theoretically, this center could be in the middle of your present living room in a physical space, but the distance between you and the members of your family still living, sitting perhaps thinking of you reading a paper, would have nothing to do with space as you know it. You would be more separated from them than if you were, say, on the moon. You could perhaps change your own focus of attention away from the center and theoretically see the room and its inhabitants, and yet still this distance that has nothing to do with miles would be between you.